I came face to face with Xbox's biggest problem. They're about to put a 4080 in your Xbox console. What's up, y'all? I'm Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we talk about Xbox stuff. And today, I'm teaming up with Mr. Jimmy Champagne to talk about that Xbox stuff. And I gotta say, bud, I was thinking about you yesterday because you've been telling me this shit is gonna happen, and you've been warning me about the dangers of digital ownership only, digital gaming only, especially on consoles. And the whole time I've been like, man, I don't really care. Like, maybe if Xbox goes full digital, I don't know, like most of my gaming library is all digital. And yesterday I was confronted with the cold hard truth of why that would suck, because Xbox had their servers were down, and they were reporting that in some places it lasted up to 7 hours. And I was in the middle of filming, and I was like, afterwards, I'm gonna jump into Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I just beat Moog on my second character, and all of my games, single player or not, that I owned outright, like Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, I tried a few others, Starfield, they were like, oh, the owner of this Xbox needs to sign in order for you to play the game, because they couldn't authenticate that I was the owner of the game because the servers were down and I just had no access to any of my digital titles.
That sucks! I just went through the same thing with my PlayStation 5. My launch PlayStation 5 has this error where it randomly disconnects from the internet, and if I'm playing a digital game, it'll be like, you have to sign in. Hang on. Jake Baldino ruining the video with Discord messaging me. Okay. So it'll give me this warning that's like, you have to sign in the next 10 minutes or the game will quit. And it would happen when I was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Gran Turismo. So I just went to Target. Well, for Final Fantasy, I went to Target, but for Gran Turismo, I DoorDashed it so I could defeat these errors. But yeah, that is the worst thing ever. It's crazy that Steam is a 100% digital platform, but I was thinking about this, I don't know why, you can take the Steam Deck out of your house and play your Steam games.
I was about to ask you about that because I'm new-ish to PC gaming and Steam, so I'm like, what is it about Xbox where they need you to check in for digital stuff, whereas like you're saying, you don't have to do that on Steam, which is all digital and no one really has problems with. You never hear with people who have a bunch of Steam games losing access to their games like I did yesterday.
Well, I'm sure Steam has a thing where it's like you have to log in every 30 days. There's a fly flying around in here. So if you don't log in with in that 30 days, it'll say, hey, sign back into Steam and get access to your stuff. But their system's awesome, because I went to LA to see you, and I had my Steam Deck on the plane, just booted up Elden Ring, played that the whole flight. It was awesome. There are issues though. I killed the fly. Oh, I'm gonna work him. Okay, he's dead. There are issues with EA games where EA games have a separate launcher. So even if you buy them on Steam, when you start them up, the launcher opens up and then the game launches, and that launcher needs to be connected to the internet to use the game. But even with something like Forza Horizon 4, I'm pretty sure that if you log in once to the Xbox service, even if you take the game out of your house, it remembers that you logged in. So even on an Xbox game on the Steam Deck, you can play your digital games on the go.
They gotta re-examine how they handle this.
PS5's worse because even if it's your home PS5, it still checks while you're playing the digital game. While you're playing it, it's checking. They need to do the thing that Steam does where it's if you log in once a week would be fine if it checked that you owned your games or whatever, but checking every 5 minutes while you're playing the game, that's so egregious. It's insane. It's who is pirating that many Xbox games, really?
I'm starting to see where you're coming from, Jim, and I'll admit that right here in front of thousands of people.
But disc isn't perfect either, because a lot of games now, like Starfield and Halo Infinite, when you get the disc, it doesn't have the game on it. It's just a license check. But I guess if you had it downloaded and then you put the disc in, it would use the disc as the license check instead of the internet, so that would still be better, but not great. Not a great future we're heading towards right now, where I just saw a news story that the PS7 is when analysts suspect Sony will stop having disc drives, and I'm like, that would suck so much ass, because if it is backwards compatibility with PS4 and PS5, I have so many disc-based games. Like, what am I going to do? Keep my PS5 around forever? What if that breaks? They aren't going to fix it.
I'm now firmly in the camp that an all-digital future for consoles specifically, not good. I used to not mind it. My experience yesterday completely changed that.
Yeah, when it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, it's the worst possible thing you could ever go through. But 7 hours is also a long time. Not as bad as when the PS3 network went down for 3 weeks in the middle of the summer back when I was in high school. That made me want to do something I can't say on YouTube. I was like, what do I do? And like SOCOM 4 came out like right before that, and that game is like very reliant on online, and then it didn't sell well. So then Sony was like, hey guys at Zipper Interactive, go make a Vita game. And obviously that didn't sell well. So they're like, well, two bummer games in a row, guys, we're shutting you down. And that's bull, because like the whole reason that SOCOM 4 didn't sell is because the PlayStation Network didn't work for 3 weeks.
Ideally, going forward, they'd keep doing what we're kind of seeing now. It's like, we got a console with the disc, we got a console with no disc if you don't give a damn about the disc. You gotta wonder how long that's going to continue, but also at the same time, I'm like, how much money are they losing by having a separate SKU with a disc? Like, is it really just that egregious to their bottom line?
Can't be that much more expensive. Because back when they started selling digital games on the PS3, you would actually get a $10 discount for buying them digitally.
Hopefully Xbox, and I've said this before in the past, they are someone who are all about options at this point. They're like, oh, we want our people to play the games the way they want to play. Hopefully that includes physical going into the future, but more and more people are saying that Xbox is going to be the first to ditch physical discs and go all digital.
We heard when the things leaked that the new Series X was going to be all digital, and that's like the main console. So like, yeah, that would blow. And like, they sell less games on disc. A lot of the Xbox's recent games have not even come out on disc. I'm pretty sure Hellblade didn't. But on PS5, you can play Hi-Fi Rush physically.
And you brought this up. Well, we didn't do a two host, but I had like a segment that you filmed in one of my videos when you're talking about how Xbox is all about game preservation, game preservation. We have a whole team dedicated to game preservation. And if you have a whole team that is dedicated to game preservation and that doesn't include fighting and advocating for physical games, then what is the point?
Yeah, exactly. It's like stupid. And with Forza, it's extra annoying because if the licenses are running out, I would prefer them just re-up the licenses for the music or the cars or whatever, but then they say, oh, just go play Forza Horizon 5. They're not the same game. They're like 2 different maps and everything like that. It is preserved because if you buy it before it goes away, you'll have it forever. It's like, not if the servers go down, not if Xbox goes down. Maybe if you have a disc copy and you thought to put it in your Xbox and update it within the past year or so, but like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like discs should just be around. I get why they want to get rid of them, because they want to control everything and eventually get it so where it's in the cloud and not actually on your console. Welcome to the life of a PlayStation gamer, because the PSN goes down like every other day, it seems like.
We're going to shift a little bit from a topic that you're very passionate about, physical games, games preservation, to a topic that you are notoriously against. In my last video, I called you a grade A top tier cloud gaming hater, and I think that's pretty accurate.
Now you know why. Now you know why. What if the cloud gaming server goes down? Then you can't play anything.
Then you can't play the game. Yeah, if you are someone who plays exclusively games through the cloud.
If you're someone who exclusively plays games through the cloud, seek help.
Partnership that they have with NVIDIA, it keeps popping up because they're like, we're gonna make sure Call of Duty is playable on your services. Other Xbox first-party games like Pentiment and Ghostwire Tokyo, but apparently word on the street, according to some people, is that the partnership is going to go even further. It's going to come back the other way, and NVIDIA GeForce Now is going to be supported natively through Xbox Game Pass. Like, there's going to be a thing on some games where it's like, well, you can stream through Xbox Cloud Gaming, or you can stream through freaking GeForce Now, which the top end of that, if you have the right plan, is like all the way up to like a 4080, like 4K, 120 FPS streaming.
GeForce Now is like the only good cloud service, because like if you have a big Steam library and you only have like a crappy laptop, you can access your Steam library on that laptop through GeForce Now, and GeForce Now streaming is actually good. Like, it's really high quality, low latency, and I think it's like a quality service. It's interesting though, because Xbox, the processor in the Xbox is AMD. So it's like they're going a little sidestep there, making a partnership with Nvidia to get GeForce Now on there. But yeah, that opens up so many different games for you if you have a Steam library, because that's how you interact with GeForce Now.
There's some weird things about this and some cool things about this. On one end, I would assume that Xbox would try to grow Xbox Cloud Gaming and try to push their own service rather than invite competitors directly onto their platform. But that is kind of consistent with what we've been hearing. Like, you buy an Xbox, it's more like a PC. You'll be able to access like the Epic Games Store, maybe even Steam when they come out with the next generation of Xbox consoles. So on paper, like, GeForce Now smokes freaking Xbox Cloud Gaming, and I wonder if they invite Nvidia onto their platform, if anyone would even bother to use it at all. I think the only thing barring people from doing that is that it is a separate subscription.
It would be cool for someone who already uses GeForce Now, like on their PC, they would have like a Xbox connected to their TV that they could then access their Steam games from. But when you go on GeForce Now, it's just like a virtual desktop, like of a computer that you're accessing over the cloud. So I would imagine that you could access the Xbox app as well as Steam and play your Xbox games there too, with the PC overhead of a 4080 versus your Series X, which would be kind of cool. It would be crazy if you played Ghost of Tsushima on Steam, on GeForce Now, on your Xbox.
I'm not sure like what the timeline is on that. Your Xbox is slowly becoming more and more a PC. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the video, but that seems to be the direction that they're going in. That sounds really dope. Like, do you think that is something that people would spring for? Like, if you don't have an Xbox and you suddenly have access to Steam, you're like, hell yeah, like I'm finally buying in.
If they added the GeForce Now subscription to Game Pass Ultimate, that would be cool. But like, if you're already paying for Game Pass, I feel like it's a tough sell to be like, GeForce Now works and you also have to pay for it every month. I feel like they got to get some deal in place there where you at least get a discount or something. I like GeForce Now. I understand why people like it.
But you know what people don't like? Being fired from their job. Everyone in tech is laying off a bunch of people, and Microsoft, obviously, is included in that. They laid off a bunch of people at the beginning of the year. They laid off a bunch of people last year. They keep laying off people, and apparently it's not going to stop. Rumor has it that they're letting go even more people. We're not sure entirely like what departments are affected or like what the scope is this time, but people are posting on Twitter saying that their roles have been eliminated by Microsoft and they were working at Xbox and now they're not anymore. And then Tom Warren retweeted this one tweet and saying, more Xbox layoffs happening this week. Microsoft laid off this person while she was on vacation.
I don't know. They got to start selling games, man. Like, people got to start buying Xbox games. So if they're not pumping them out at this like one big game a quarter rate that they've been trying to get to forever, it's like you can't just keep people around. They got investors that they have to please, right? Like, guys who put a bunch of money into Microsoft, they want to make money on their money. And if they're saying like, why are you just keeping these studios open that aren't selling games? And Microsoft doesn't have the defense of saying, well, Game Pass is exploding, it's rising, it's growing every month by millions of users. It seems like it's kind of stagnated where it's at. And if there's no growth, there's no more extra money coming in to keep these studios afloat, you know? So they're going to start closing studios down that are making like wild bet games and like totally out off the wall games, and they're going to focus on like Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom, Halo, Gears of War, Forza, right? Like, that's going to be what their bread and butter is going forward. Like, leadership as a whole seems to be the problem. It seems like a leadership problem where they're like, oh, we're making all this money in 2020 and totally ignoring the fact that everyone's stuck inside, and eventually they're going to go outside and then we're going to be making less money. That's a huge judgment error, you know? Like, we talk about this on PlayStation all the time, but like the budgets are completely out of whack. Games are costing like $350 million, as much as the Avengers Endgame. And like, yeah, you sell them for more at $70, but you create such a small margin of error where you have to sell, you basically have to win with every game. Like, every game needs to be a hit or else your studio is going to get shut down. And that middle tier game, the AA or like lower tier AAA game space is totally drying up.
I want to get your take on something that I talked about in another Xbox Ready video, Digital Foundry video they just did. They admit they're like, on paper, The Series X is built to be the more powerful machine, should run games better, but in practice, the PlayStation 5 is able to overachieve and outshine the Series X performance-wise on these multi-platform games, and they examine why that is. Where I ultimately ended up was like, is this something like people really, really care about, or is it gonna shift people one way or the other? And a lot of the times for me, it's like these differences on PS5 versus Xbox when something runs better on PS5 or vice versa. It's like, it's not enough for me to be like, damn, this is game-breaking stuff. I cannot play this game on Xbox. I need to switch over to PlayStation 5 now.
The one example I have of that is Alan Wake 2. On PC, that game's a stuttering mess. On PS5, you were getting up to like 10 to 15 frames lower per second than Xbox. So I ended up playing a lot of that game on Xbox while I was waiting for the the PC version to be patched. And the Digital Foundry thing makes a lot of sense because, like, someone who plays on PC, my 4090 13900K i9 with 64 gigs of RAM, like, theoretically, I should be running laps around every console game that comes out, but that's not the case because it's like PC is a platform where you can have multiple different combinations of parts and everything like that, and games are coming out unfinished, so I still get stuttering. I still get, 1% lows where my frame rate will drop to like 20 FPS for one frame for no reason. So, like, it makes sense to, like, having the most horsepower on paper doesn't necessarily mean you have the best console. So it makes sense that the PS5 works better because it's more optimized. Like, the pipeline that the developers have to use lets them access different parts of the PS5 faster than the Xbox. So while the GPU in the Xbox is better, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because the software pipeline isn't as good. And we heard this before the Xbox and PS5 came out, that developers were having a much tougher time with the Series X than they were with the PS5 because Microsoft shipped the software development kit late. I agree with you. I never think the differences are all that much more like noticeable, and they also threw a win at Xbox on Digital Foundry when they're talking about Elden Ring, where they're like, yeah, you get better frame rates overall on the PS5 because of these optimizations, but because of the way the PS5 works and because it has a lower ceiling, it has poor VRR capabilities, so we'd prefer to play Elden Ring on Xbox because you can smooth out the lower frame rates better, So it's like give and take. It doesn't ultimately matter at the end of the day. They're both like pretty much the same. One's just a little bit better and doesn't access itself right.
We're gonna wrap up the video right there. Thanks so much for joining us for a gentleman's conversation about the latest stuff going on in the world of Xbox. Shout out to Jimmy for joining us once again. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.